Episode 317 of the TV Dudes, recorded January 20th, 2021. Who's the boss? This week, we're asking the musical question, who's the boss? We're looking back at the final season of The Magicians on Netflix, watching Zoe struggle with personal loss and unexpected promotion in the second season of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist on Hulu, and watching Ted Danson as the new mayor of Los Angeles in Mr. Mayor, also on Hulu. And of course, we're talking about WandaVision over on Disney+, where the big question is, who's in charge of this strange sitcom reality? But before we get to all that, I'm Randy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Les.
Guys, right before we started recording, I was telling the story about the Evgeny Defelnikov thing in Sports Night, and as I'm going through the intro, I'm thinking, "Don't screw up, you have to start over. Don't screw up, you have to start over." We didn't used to do the scripted intros so much; it used to be Grant's job, and since Grant went to part-time on us, I have become the full-time intro guy. And every so often, I write something up, and then as I'm reading it, I'm like, "Why did I not proofread this beforehand to see that it was actually able to be read?" This is
the worst. The worst.
This is one of the big. WandaVision is one of the big anticipated TV shows, and we're definitely going to be getting into that. I will have extra thoughts on it on the MCU pod this Friday, which our buddy Grant is doing. He's doing a weekly watch after. So if you don't get enough of my thoughts on this episode, you can hear more of that on MCU pod. And while I'm plugging other podcasts, I don't know if you guys have seen the new podcast from Rolling Stone and my buddy Alan Sepinwall. He's got a new one. He's got a new one called "Too Long Didn't Watch."
Huh.
And the premise of it is he is talking to all these guest stars, and they're basically finding shows that they have not watched. They watch the first episode, then they sort of speculate on what might happen, and then they watch the last episode of the series. And then he sort of quizzes them on what might have happened.
This is exactly what I did with Game of Thrones.
Okay, so you and Alison Brie now have something in common because Alison Brie did Game of Thrones that way.
Yes.
He did. Kumail Nanjiani just did Veronica Mars with him, and the first episode is John Hamm and Gossip Girl, and John Hamm's hilarious.
Oh, that's great. That's
So
great.
John Hamm only watches the first and the last episode.
The first and the last.
Gossip Girl.
Yep.
Which is just nothing but whodunit twists.
It's really good. I'm having a great time with it. So definitely recommend that for people who need a TV podcast.
So he watched, like, Kumail Nanjiani watched the first, like, that pilot of Veronica Mars that's so great, and Logan is such a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Logan's such the villain. And then the last one, where, like, Naval Commander Admiral Logan.
Okay, so no, they didn't do that. They debated this hotly. They did not watch the movie. They did not watch the new season.
Damn it.
They watched the finale of season 3, which I think was the right call.
That's probably the right call, but also it would have been so hysterical of, like, wait, he's in the Navy? They're in love? He's like flown in from Top Gun here?
Yep. Well, the funny thing is,
then that ending.
He then did do some multiple choice questions, and one of them was, he's like, who dies at the end of the finale? Is it? And Logan was one of the options, and they showed him a little clip. So he saw Logan blow up. And honestly, I was a little sad because I'm like, oh man, I feel like Kumail Nanjiani got cheated out of seeing Veronica Mars.
He got totally fucking screwed on that. Oh my God.
I feel like my favorite show to see that concept with would be Dexter. Because the funny thing about the really bad ending is that episode, that final episode, half of it is like has a lot of parallels to the pilot and is kind of like a Dexter episode that like reiterates the concept of what he does, but then lumberjack. So it'd literally be like, this is the coolest idea for a show. Lumberjack.
You know what? It tears me, guys. This is what I should have done with The Magicians, because I've seen the first episode. I should have watched the last episode this weekend, but just completely confused.
I think you would have caught up, honestly.
I will say that first season's a little androgynous. Like, it takes 2 or 3 twists before it figures out what kind of show it wants to be.
I just started rewatching it while reading the books, and it's fun. But
So before we get to all the old business and new business, it's time as always for the power rankings.
Right. So yeah, anybody can tell you what they like. That's kind of what we're here for. But if you want to know what's good, you got to talk to a buddy of ours. All right. Yeah, he's got no boss. He's his own boss. We're talking, and also genderfying, of course, the internet. It's a simple formula we got around here. It's the IMDb plus the RT equals the TBD power rankings. And this is going to be through shows through January 18th. I think, which would have been Monday of the week that we're recording this. Just kind of have it staggered around like the release schedule, because this 2021, we got the new power rankings where we're not just talking about the shows we're talking about. We're actually going to see how they stack up against things like The Goldbergs or American Housewife, which is that show that replaced Trophy Wife because the title was just so offensive. People couldn't get over it, and see that show is amazing.
American Housewife is on season 5, and Trophy I'm angry about this now.
Only got one season.
I just assumed American Housewife was like a Homeland type thing, like sleeper cell agent. Is it? I haven't seen any ads.
It's so terrible. I saw the first episode.
My idea here is way, way better. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, it looks like
the Americans
saying modern Roseanne, considering one of the other shows on here is The Connors that just came back.
Yeah.
But American Housewife seems like kind of like a stab at a modern Roseanne or like a competitor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million other mom shows like that follow that format, but pretty by the numbers. So anyways, let's get into the meat of it. Let's talk about the top shows. Not that just that we're watching, but that everybody's watching. And this is for the past 6 weeks. Number 10, we're going to talk about it later tonight. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Not Infinite Playlist, Extraordinary.
That makes me happy. I'm glad that is ranking high.
Yeah, I'm also glad because this is one I kind of wrote off last year when they had that weird release where it was like the pilot came out and then like a month later we got to see episode 2, or it was something like that. So I just never got into it and came back around to it now, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
Number 9, it's a two-way tie between Lupin, which we'll probably talk about later, and Dickinson over on Apple Plus with the new Hawkeye on there.
I really didn't like the pilot of the first episode of Dickinson and didn't watch more of it, but I'm thinking now maybe I ought to. There's a couple on this list that I'm realizing like I really didn't like the pilot, but maybe I should give a second episode a shot.
Yeah, it's number 5. If you just look at the Rotten Tomatoes audience score, it's number 5 on that list. So it's got some high numbers in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's that? Is that a side stack, Kyle? What you got? You got more than one list over there that you're pulling from? Yes, I do. These power rankings have just been powered up.
Super powered rankings.
Number 8 on the big list, which is kind of why we hit record.
Did you talk about the other number 9?
Oh, Lupin. I thought I mentioned it. Lupin, we're going to probably talk about soon, and then
next week,
Dickinson. Yes. Yeah. See, I don't ever want to call our shot because I want to have the freedom to be like Liquid and not talk about the Thing for 4 weeks. So number 8 is WandaVision over on Disney Plus, which this only has 2 weeks or 2 episodes, so these scores are probably going to change over the next couple weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it in a higher spot. But yeah, right now, 81 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, 75 on IMDb. Well, 7.5. The way that we added up, it's a 75. But yeah, that's probably going to go up because it's kind of weird. Right above that, in the number 7 spot, is the new season 13 of Doctor Who that has already started airing in the UK and is dropping on BBC America beginning of January. So by the time you're hearing this, we've already heard it. Number 6 spot,
this is
a show
weird.
that you guys would have been. Have you looked this up?
Yes, it is super fucking British.
I imagine you'd be like, Kyle, don't put this on the list.
It's so British, it's 2 words.
It's got the scores. Lovers of Masterpiece Theater will be familiar with the current installment, All Creatures Great and Small, which is number 6 on our list. I love Masterpiece Theater. Even if I don't get into all the shows, I'm always just like glad there's shows there playing in that spot.
Kyle, I've heard of this show. I don't know what it's about, so I'm going to guess. It is about anthropomorphic animals in an upstairs downstairs comedy, right?
You know what's funny? I haven't seen the trailer either, but that sounds close to like the promotional photography that I've seen for it.
It's an Animal Farm sequel, Animal Manor.
Well, I was getting more Babe vibes, but that may not do.
It's Downton Zoo.
Downton Zoo.
Downton Menagerie.
Downton Zooby. We bought a Downton Abbey. Number 5 on the list. I can imagine some friends of ours that'll be excited to see this represented, but This Is Us season 5 over on NBC. The critically acclaimed This Is Us finally duking it out, because I don't think have we ever talked about this on the pod?
I don't believe we have.
I think
Probably not.
When the first couple episodes, I think when the first couple episodes we talked about it then. And wrote it off as not for us.
Yeah, I feel like we've discussed it as a show that does exist and is very popular.
Yes, exactly right. Yes.
Whenever it comes back, I'm always listening to my wife discuss it. So I feel like it's always in my kind of TV lexicon, even if it's not part of our discussion. But yeah, people like it.
And we have some friends of the show that are covered extensively. If anybody actually wants to go, I think the This Is Us podcast is still going. So.
Yep, I believe so too.
Man, we're like the podcast dudes this week.
We are.
It was funny. We now do our TV diaries, which we'll get to in a bit. And I found myself, because I'd listened to so many podcasts this week, I was like, do I put that on there? Is that appropriate? I guess it's not a podcast diary. But yeah,
diary.
Number 4 on our list, another show that I've heard nothing about, but I'm kind of intrigued now, is called A Discovery of Witches.
This
starting
is the other
season
show,
2 over on Shudder.
This is the show that the other show that I'd watched the pilot, like Dickinson, pilot first episode. I think this aired originally on Sci-Fi or something. I may be wrong, but
yeah,
I don't think this is a Shudder original. They picked it up.
Yeah.
But I remember watching the first episode thinking that could be really cool, and then going, no, it just didn't grab me. I wanted it to, I don't know, I ended up loving Motherland Fort Salem and not loving Discovery of Witches, but seeing it rank so friggin' high, I don't know if people are just out of TV and I don't mind rewatching shit, or if this is really good. But either way, I've got Shudder and should check it out.
Yeah. No, and I think that these numbers could change. Like, this show's been on for a while. A lot of other things on this list have just popped up there. So with this new system, I could see things moving around.
Yep.
Number 3 on the list is Search Party season 4, which has gone from TBS over to HBO Max.
That is a weird shift in tone.
I watched the first 4 episodes of Search Party, and I know our buddy Grant got into it. I never plugged into it. But this is 4 seasons in.
Yeah. Have you seen the promos for this current season?
No, I haven't seen any of it.
So I have not seen a single episode, but my interpretation of the marketing is that in the first season, it's a group of friends that are trying to find a missing person. So I don't know if they know the person or not. Yeah. The marketing that came out for this 4th season is the main character from Arrested Development, maybe.
Leah Shawkat.
Yeah,
that's it. I was like, she's got a hard name. She's straight up like in Room, like pulling a Brie Larson, like down in the bunker, Cloverfield style. Like she's been kidnapped and her friends are trying to find her.
Oh shit! And she's the one that starts it in the first season. I think she's the one that decides that some party friend of theirs is missing.
So that actually tells me this might be like a fresh start where you can jump in at season 4 and the story will have evolved to kind of a new starting point.
Instead, I'm going to give this the too long didn't watch treatment. I'm going to watch the first episode and then the last episode.
There you go.
I wonder who they're going to put through Lost like that.
Oh
man, that's another good one.
God, it's a like seriously. I've always loved Steppenwell's podcast, but it's such a genius idea.
It is a great idea.
I wish we'd come up with it.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. I'm like, maybe we do one for a Patreon.
Yeah,
or we pick one for each other and then discuss.
Pick one that we haven't seen. That's the trick. Is there any show on the planet the three of us haven't seen?
Yeah, it might not work on us. We'd have a ton of good ideas, but like
we'd end up with one of us having watched it.
Friends.
Yeah, one of us will have seen it. Probably less. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's for sure. So dragging this out as long as I can, soaking up the spotlight. The number 2 show on our list, no surprise, is season 2 of The Mandalorian over on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Which ranks really high, but I'm kind of surprised that for as good it is, it didn't outrank Cobra Kai season 3 on Netflix.
I think Cobra Kai had that heat on it. And also Mandalorian's been over for a couple of weeks now, and Cobra Kai just finished.
Yeah. This is as I'm kind of diving into the numbers more and blowing this list out for 2021, I have noticed that Rotten Tomatoes makes it really easy to view Netflix content. So I'd be curious to learn if they are owned by the same company or like what that partnership is there, because a lot of Netflix shows, I believe, ranked really high last year. I think Netflix also makes it easy to see their own personal rankings of their content. They have a great top 10 list every week.
Right. Although it's interesting, Liz, looking at this, in the top 10, there's only 2 Netflix shows. So if they're putting their thumb on the scale, they're doing it real subtly.
Well, I think that has maybe a little bit more to do with we haven't taught, like, there's not a ton of Netflix shows out right now that we're ranking. But here's a weird statistic. With a 95% in the audience score, the Carmen Sandiego kids show on Netflix. Are kids getting on there and ranking Carmen Sandiego?
Maybe.
Are these people who are fans of it back in the 90s?
Yeah, that's what I think. Nostalgic fans, yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, again, another Netflix property.
It looks like Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Warner Brothers as a minority stake, and Fandango is the majority stake.
Huh. Okay. All right. So I would like to point out one thing in looking at the other lists. The Rotten Tomato critics are the ones who cost us Letterkenny here, because Letterkenny is number 2, tied for number 2 on the Rotten Tomato audience score, and number 4 on the IMDb score. So those snooty critics turn their nose up Canadian content.
I know. This is probably an off mic thing, but I actually looked up what it would take to be a Rotten Tomatoes certified critic. And we more than meet the credentials. I think
for doing podcasts,
you only need to do it for 2 years.
Wait, which of us is the asshole? I don't like this.
Yeah. I'm like, we gotta fix Letterkenny. It's like we just want to review one show. Let us on for this one show.
Yeah, we got to give number rankings, percentage rankings. All right, well, thank you, Kyle. I love the new power rankings. It's a fun experience.
Yeah, no, it feels like my own personal sports night. I got like my or actually not sports night. What is it? Newsroom, where she had like the financial dashboard.
I
had that for TV.
You're our Olivia Munn.
See, I like to think of it as Your Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
Ooh, that is way better alliteration. I take Randy.
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. That's a news radio reference for those of you who don't know.
I do it. I go deep.
And speaking of new segments, it's time for our weekly TV diary, where we talk about the stuff that we've been watching. Some of it was our homework. Some of it is just stuff we've been watching. Les, why don't you kick us off this week?
All right. This week I watched The Magician Season 5, WandaVision Episodes 1 and 2, some Old Mad About You, some more Leverage, some Magician Season 1. I'm also reading the books, so that's been a fun comparison. Zoe, I had to rewatch the Season 1 finale, which I had to do on Peacock. And then I watched some Zoe's Extraordinary Season 2. I watched the new Batwoman episode, which I think we're going to probably talk about on the show coming up here in the next few weeks. With the change in actress, it was a really, really fun pilot. I watched that Michael Bay movie with Ryan Reynolds, Six Underground, which is fun, very late at night, and also almost difficult to follow. It's so Michael Bay. And then I watched They Live, which we will discuss on Patreon.
Yeah, I also watched They Live. I did not watch Six Underground, but I did watch the new Outside the Wire, which is like a sci-fi actioner with Anthony Mackie, which feels like it's in that Six Underground vein. It's kind of a dumb sci-fi action-y. I also watched WandaVision, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, Mr. Mayor, Watched One Night in Miami over on Prime. Watched a few more episodes of West Wing season 4. Watched 3 episodes of Lupin, which we're going to cover next week. Based on Les's recommendation, I watched 3 episodes of Best Leftovers Ever, and I'm in love with it, and especially in love with Jackie Tone as the guest or the host who makes up a song at the end of every episode. That one's super fun.
Man, again, you've got to watch Tiny Chef. We're gonna have to discuss Tiny Chef show.
Cool. I'll put it on the list. Watch the Batwoman also, since Les reminded me that was on. I watched a couple movies. I watched HBO Max's Lockdown, which, despite loving the cast, I really didn't like. I rewatched Ratatouille, which I always love Ratatouille, and it was kind of good to check back in. And then I watched 2 episodes of Everyone is Doing Great over on Hulu, which we may visit at some point. We're not sure. And of course, I watched They Live. Kyle?
Nice. Each week I'm watching Colbert, Kimmel, Seth Meyers. Caught up for the stuff we're going to talk about later. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, WandaVision, The Magicians. Caught this new one I found, History 101 on Netflix. Saw the first episode, which is all about fast food. Great little just like micro documentaries. All caught up on the current season of SWAT that's airing right now, the one that's live. Watched a handful of movies. Watched Up again, the Pixar movie. Cried like a baby a million times.
Yep.
My wife had never seen Chef, the film, before. We'd watched all the TV episodes.
I like that.
But yeah, Chef's a solid movie. I really dig it.
Yeah.
Good story with the kid. It's just fun. Yeah.
It's kind of like an over-the-top archetype, but instead of being about arm wrestling,
oh my god!
The main
cap around backwards
ego.
and really cooked a fucking taco.
But yeah, no, it's like just focused a bit too much. It's funny. I was like, if you just tweaked it a little bit, you could have made it like really heartfelt at the end where the kid comes back to work at the truck. Anyways, that's another Patreon. Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift was on TV, so I stopped like a zombie and just stood in front of the TV Obey style and watched Tokyo Drift.
I wanted to fist bump you just for seeing that on your list of all the Fast and Furiouses to revisit. I have re-seen Tokyo Drift multiple times.
It's so funny. I looked at my wife and I was like, "We gotta watch it. It's the best Tokyo Drift one."
I think for a Patreon idea, we should all pick a movie. I bet we've all got a movie that you can't justify why you've seen this more than 5 times, and we should make each other watch that.
That'd be funny. I also caught Batwoman, which I'm interested in, and then excited to talk about They Live later.
All right.
On Patreon.
So speaking of Patreon, it's a good reminder that you can support us by going to our patreon.com/tvdudes. Throw us $1 an episode. In exchange, we get to keep other streaming services, pay for our hosting costs, and you get bonus content each week. This week, we're going to be talking about They Live. We're continuing our John Carpenter marathon. We also have our $20 showrunner level. So if there are shows you want us to throw in the rotation, you can buy in at that level. Give us a couple ideas. To be clear, they do not have to be anime. In fact, we're perfectly happy with them not being anime. But we also know it's probably going to be anime. Before we get to our new stuff this week, let's talk old business. You guys were going through The Magicians, and you watched the season 5, this final season.
Yes, like everything else on Sci-Fi, they don't fucking release these shows or make it easy to watch if you don't want to hook your laptop up to the TV or something, unless you have cable, I guess.
And it was kind of weird because I swore that the new season comes out in January of 2020, this last year. I swore that season 4 was airing and that we had finished that, but then Les, you're like, oh, the new season came to Netflix, and I was like, I haven't seen any of this.
Waiting on season 5 because it's the last season. They declared that they're done. I knew they were going to wrap it. With how season 4 ended, they literally lost a main character. I haven't looked into it, but it didn't seem like it was from any actor drama. Like he dies in the show, and it felt natural. like an earned sacrifice across the season. And so it was cool to see I knew they had a new final season coming where they were going to deal with the aftermath of losing this core character. And yeah, it finally dropped on Netflix, and so I binge watched the shit out of it.
Oh yeah, no. And in this final season, it's kind of exciting because they spoilers for, magicians that have come before this, but as fans of the show know, it takes so many twists and turns. It's kind of hard to give somebody a coherent, X, Y, and Z happens. Like the show reinvents itself every few episodes, does great standalones like their musical episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the thing that got me turned on to this season. Was you were talking about the musical heist episode, and I was like, wait a second, I've definitely not seen that, because I'd remember that.
Yeah, they've done musical episodes before. Even in the first season, they had moments of emotional overwhelm being some key to a spell, or a spell causing people to lose check on stuff and like them break into song. So like they've had little fun moments with that before. But yeah, it's great.
To the best of my memory, the real challenge, not just in the previous season, but in seasons in the past, is when the show began, magic was accessible. Everybody had it. But it seems like every season they come up with a reason why people can't use magic anymore.
Well, beautifully, it's usually it's like a Winchester Brothers kind of thing. Like usually whatever's wrong in like the big bad in season 3 is the direct ramification of the shit they did in season 2.
Yep.
Almost each time, like whatever y'all did to fix what you perceived was a problem with your limited understanding of it broke something far worse. And I felt like this season they really run with that. There's some overt lines where I'm like, the writer's room is aware of this, where somebody's like, so wait, we're gonna move the moon? Isn't that gonna fuck everything? And like, yes, but that is a problem we will deal with. Or no, they have already moved. I think already chosen to do the plan where they're going to fuck with the moon, which has fucked a bunch of other stuff up. And the new plan is to destroy the moon and make a new moon. And everybody's like, I'm sorry, what?
And they have these amazing meta characters in the background that are like, well, isn't that kind of like putting a hat on a hat?
No, like literally somebody says that's kind of a hat on a hat. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Or one character.
Now would be a good time for an act break.
Yes, somebody actually does basically I have a MacGuffin where they're like, oh, but how would we do such and such? And somebody just goes, I have a thing. Don't worry, I'll get it in a minute. And they just move on. Because like at this point, it's the alias problem. It's like at some point in a show, you can't explain to me how these people would be in a room without just breaking into a fist fight. And like too much has happened between them to act like there's a normal day in their lives. And that becomes a central theme in this. Like there's characters that are like, no, I've saved the world twice. Why is this on me again?
Characters who have died and have left widowed their lover, but then another version of them from another dimension has come in and become lovers with somebody else, and then that person's in the same room with them, breaking out into song and dance. It does get, you're stretching the taffy a little thin. But I will say, without getting too much into the story, a criticism I've had of this show over the years, which I feel like it's not all bad, but this show in the past has been really sexy. I'm talking about
sexy.
like HBO and Cinemax level, like sexy on what's essentially a CW show.
Yes. CW wishes they could have this level of sexy across. I mean, and it does not, I don't care what gender pairing you think any two people in a room are, anybody. You could ship anybody on the show. It's wonderful.
Anybody's going to start. This season did a really good job of not getting rid of like the sexy stuff, but it didn't feel like a sex show. I didn't feel like I was watching Spartacus or something.
Because like in season 1, they directly ruin some plans by everything's going great and they're about to do something really dangerous and you need the team together. And then one person walks in a room and is like, no, what is going on? Why do you three not want to look at each other? You know, we have to like do a very dangerous. Christ, did you all fuck?
Awkward threesome, what?
Yeah, and like no, guys, we have to all be. We're doing cooperative magic. Like you can't not want to look at each other because you all got real drunk last night, and like the collegeness of it burns them in a bunch of time.
Yeah, and essentially for people who aren't familiar with the show, we should probably lead with this is. This is essentially a more mature Harry Potter. Think like Harry Potter meets NYU or more of an urban school mixed with the same kind of genre flip, but with like a Chronicles of Narnia, where you essentially have this doorway to a secret realm where these kids from the school are the kings of this empire, kings and queens of this fictional empire. But everything is dialed up for a more mature audience, and their humor is definitely on the adult side.
The book leaves them they're in high school still, and I'm really glad they aged them up. I watched the show first. I'm just now reading the books, but it really helps separate it from just being another Harry Potter by putting them in grad school, and it helps with the tone, I feel like, because it is a much more vicious Harry Potter. Like, magic's going to get you killed more than likely. Best case scenario, like horrible shit's going to happen to you more than likely by doing some magic wrong.
It's funny because in Harry Potter, it always seemed like they're like, don't do magic. You're too young to do magic. In this, it seems like, oh yeah, go do magic. I don't care if you blow your hand off. Yeah. Like, it's so dangerous. Like, the kids don't do it because they're like, I'm going to, grow a tail or like lose my dick if I try that.
There's a lot of times where they call out the like why would, where somebody's like, why is this so difficult? And like, because fucking magicians, like, like you just like secrets. You just want, like, somebody's like, well, can we not cure cancer? And like, no. And like, why would you think we would keep that secret? Like, because y'all are dicks.
Yeah.
Of course you would keep that secret.
That is an interesting theme throughout all the seasons of this show, how much different magicians subjugate each other. How if magic is in short supply, somebody's hoarding the magic. Or if magic's in abundance, they all want to put the handcuffs on you. This guy can't use magic. He can't. One of the things I really love about season 5 is that kind of a underwhelming B story has been the hedge witches, and essentially what happens to the people who don't get into Hogwarts, or break bells is what it is in the magician's universe. What happens to them? They fall in with kind of like the fringe street culture, the people who are peddling their magic drugs on the corner.
Oh man, you can't fuck with Google spells. I mean, you made an invisible fire in your apartment. You're gonna get killed. Like, no, there's a lot of shit like that. It's great.
They're good for comic relief and a few kind of, more tense situations. But for the most part, they got like nothing to do on this show. And I love how we start this season where like the library is abandoned, and eventually they just put all the hedge witches to work in the library. The librarians were the one who took their power away in the first place. So it's like, they
take
power back.
The most like stick up their ass, let's control magic group who get decimated at one point in a previous season. And yeah, they finally they make a background story about bringing these hedge witches in, kind of into the fold of like, they do a similar thing on Sabrina recently of like, well, what do we do if we don't have the Dark Lord? Like, well, maybe you should start talking nice to the other people in the world who do also have magic that you just think you're better than.
Yeah. Oh, I am so glad you mentioned the other people in the world that have magic, because they introduced amazing character. I think this was season 4 when Alice was trapped in the library, forced to like work down there.
Is this where she meets Santa?
Yeah, they introduced Santa Claus as a character, and he's like he's a totally different. He's not traditional Santa. He's black. He has no beard. He curses. He's not in bad shape. But the thing is, his power set, or Santa's power set, it's very similar to these rare characters on the show called Travelers, who can not only, teleport from place to place, but they can read your thoughts.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what Santa needs in order to both get you the perfect gift and, transport into your living room and put the gift under the tree.
Weirdly, rewatching season 1, they name drop him pretty early, and everybody's like, oh, this crazy professor knows. But the professor's like, I helped out some traveler. The last traveler I met used as his focus like big deer. And they're like, Santa? Like, I didn't catch his name. I don't know.
I don't know.
But then like 3 seasons later, like, Alice ends up cellmates with the dude who's like, no, I'm the real Santa.
Yeah. And when he comes in, which it is a little bit of a MacGuffin. Wait, was that the MacGuffin you were talking about earlier when she's like, I know a guy?
No. In season 5, they they have a population problem. Like they need to be able to tell who's still in the land of Fillory, and Josh Hoberman, one of the characters, is like, I got a thing that does that. And he makes I mean, like, they don't stop it. Like, he doesn't stop the planning to explain it or anything. He's like, no, continue. But I've got that. Don't worry.
Can I mention Josh real quick while we're on him? Because this character started very much as like maybe would have been in there for one episode or maybe like a 3-episode deal, but with such great comic relief, easily made his way in as like the 5th member of the team, who was just kind of in the background to make snacks and like roll joints.
Yeah, he successfully goes from the hanger-on that's not cool enough to be with the group to being full, like, needed in the group. Like, to the point that, like, saving Josh is a huge arc at one point.
Well, and what I love is that as we've lost our main character, Quentin Coldwater, Josh easily has slipped into that number 4 spot, and all these other supporting characters have stepped up and like are like Finn. Really great. Josh, like Finn, who, again, I imagine when we're first introduced to Finn's character in season 1, it's such a throwaway. These kids have just entered this magical realm, and now somebody has accidentally been married to a farmer's daughter. And now there's this girl that's just walking with
them. And now Finn's just stuck with them. And she's like, but I'm bequeathed to you.
But everything that comes out of her mouth is hilarious. And she has all of this practical information pertinent to their magical realm. Like, she's become one of my favorite characters on the show.
She's amazing.
And there's such great comedic value. You know, at one point, a character finds out they're pregnant this season. And they're like, this is kind of weird. I mean, I just found out I'm pregnant. And Finn's just like, oh, yeah, it's a blood red howler monkey. No,
it's like, moon. It's red howler monkey month. Like all their months are named colors and animals. She's like, no, so everything goes way faster. Yeah, of course your pregnancy's
so like 2 days later, her belly's out like 9 months pregnant.
Yeah, and Finn just walks through the room and is like, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's normal, right? She also has this really entertaining fascination with knives, where like not only is she really good at knives, but like whenever scary people come around, she's like, "Oh, nice blades."
She really loves knives. Like her knife fetish is weird. Yeah, it's a wonderful show. I dig it. The way they handle their real magic. It's not like it's all Piers Anthony Xanth stuff. Like the way they handle their legit magic. The fairies are fucking great. But also it's got this wry, like the Earthlings walking around. I never get tired of the kind of Ryan Reynolds-ish bit of the Earthlings walking around Fillory making pop culture references, surrounded by elves who are like, I still don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, I know.
My favorite was at one point, I won't say who it is, but they go, come with me if you want to live. Josh says it was really important that I say that.
like Josh told me to say that. I could tell by the look on his face. It was real important to him.
Come with me.
Yeah, Josh, like one character you find out has spent like 100 years in Fillory trying to get a movie club going.
So would you guys say this is a good ending? Like, is it a good finale?
I felt like it really was.
Well,
I got done watching The Magicians, and the first thing I thought was Supernatural could have fucking done this.
The thing about the ending that I really love, and it made me realize what kind of the magic of the writing of the show all throughout has been. I listened to a video essay this week on story worlds. So a guy who was talking about how today you don't just sell like your script to a studio, but they want to know like what's the world, like what other stories can take place in there, like what IP can we get from this. And the great thing about where Magicians ended and kind of where it took off is this world is so expansive. Like there are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G stories happening in all the different worlds and different dimensions and timelines. And every one of these little aspects kind of just expands it more.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the perfect example of like that story world, which, you know, where do we get them from? Books. This was based off of a book, so it makes a lot of sense.
And the show, they leave themselves open. If they wanted to do a full reboot, they could just do it. They could just move forward.
The whole like new Fillory at the end with like the pizza ovens and like the fields of bacon, and I'm like
trees.
This is like Fillory turned up to 11. Like this could be its own show after the fact.
Fillory has a tiny amount of opium in the air. Like, and that like Fillory's full of shit like this.
A party god has come by and turned that up in the past.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, like everybody's just wrecked. But this show's done this from like in season 1. In the books, they're dealing. One of the things that eventually happens that they're dealing with is that they're trying to defeat a villain, and they find out that they're the 39th attempt or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that like, oh no, you guys failed. Like, by failed, I mean you have all died 39 times before. So like, please keep getting and try to get it right this time, please.
Mm-hmm.
And they there's a couple of times where they directly deal with the vast differences between the book and the show, because they're very different. I mean, they age them up. Julia's not in the books at the start. She comes in a little bit later. There's a lot of weird shit that's just not the same. Penny's got a mohawk. But
an Indian guy with a mohawk, or is he?
He's a moon-faced white dude. But Margot's named Janet, and there's a moment in season 1 where they appear in the library, and the librarian is like, "Oh, Penny, Quentin, Janet," and Margot goes, "It's Margot." And the librarian looks at her and goes, "This time."
This time.
And it just moves on with it, and they're like, "What?" But there's a ton of little shit where you're like, "Oh, they're treating this the way that Stephen King talked about the Dark Tower movie." Like, well, the way the Dark Tower works, it's a giant loop that Roland keeps having to do until he gets it right, and the show is just it's a different loop than the book.
Huh.
Or the movie's a different loop than the book.
You know, if her name wasn't Margot, we would have lost one of the best puns of this season.
The Margot.
Randy. Yeah, so she has a fairy eye that she can actually pop out and give to people, so she can keep tabs on them. She can, like, lend them her fairy eye. So at one point, it's like, yeah, I got my own Margot Pro.
Which is great, because in season 1, somebody steals a bunch of living clay and because she broke up with them, makes themselves a living golem of Margot. So like, she's getting weaker, and it's because something's draining her life force, and they knock on this dude's door, and she opens it. And it's this mute clay. I mean, but it looks exactly like her. And they call it the Margolem.
The Margolem.
Yeah. And like, she keeps it for way, like, there's a running thing of like, I thought you were going to destroy that. Yeah. Yeah,
Gosh, I love that character. I love all the characters on this. It's such a rich character piece. Zelda, the librarian.
Didn't intend to go on about it this long, but with it wrapping up, so I really feel like it wrapped up well, and I really I enjoyed the shit out of the show. I didn't realize until I saw it was about to drop on Netflix how much I loved it.
I think people are going to find this on streaming. They're going to get to the end of their queues. They're going to you got to make it in like about 3 to 5 episodes of that season 1 before you kind of get a feel for it.
Because they're just shitty kind of assholes. Like, they're all the top academic jackasses of each of their schools, basically. Mm-hmm. And it takes a minute for that group to become a clique that you want to hang out with.
When this locks in, it's like Parks and Rec season 2. It's like a pretty succinct, really strong show.
Yeah.
That is high praise indeed, Kyle. And maybe someday I will see if I can hold you to it. But for right now, I have seen only the first episode.
I would definitely. I think you should watch the very last episode and report back 7 Walls.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, actually.
Randy, I think your homework for next week is to watch to rewatch the first and last Magicians.
I was very happy this week because Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist came back. This was a big, pleasant surprise for me last year. I really love this show. I love musicals. I love Skylar Astin. I really like Jane Levy, who's the lead. I love Lauren Graham. Love so much this just Mary Steenburgen. It's a great cast. It's a fun premise. And I thought season 2 came back strong. There's 2 episodes so far, and they hit that balance of like sweet, funny, heart on your sleeve, and like they got me crying a couple of times, and they also did like super fun song beats. So I thought this came back really, really strong.
And for people like me who didn't watch season 1, just saw the pilot and then jumped into season 2 cold, we got great overviews of her power set. I feel like this is a really easy part for me to jump into the story. I'm imagining some of those characters from the first episode were in the entire first season. I guess we'll get more into that in a second.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about that, Kyle, because so do you think you're going to go back and watch season 1 now? Did you like season 2?
Oh, I already know. Yeah, we got it on the docket. We just finished Magicians. Actually, my wife's finishing it in the other room right now, and then this is next on our to go back and rewatch season 1 of this.
Les, what did you think about Zoe season 2?
I was really wondering how Kyle was going to do. When I hit play on season 2, episode 1, it was really jarring. Like I realized I couldn't remember what happened. It felt like so long ago that I watched season 1 that, I mean, I feel like that was pre-pandemic. I don't know. Like,
no, it was definitely during the pandemic.
Because it felt like a long time ago.
The thing is, there was like a month between when we got the pilot episode, because I feel like it was at a TV festival maybe or something, but they released a pilot and then there was like a month.
Yeah, but I still waited a while to watch them. I mean, I kept letting them pile up. Through all of season 1, every episode, hey, they're 42 minutes long, and I still think it should be a 30-minute show. But every episode, I'd be like, this is okay. And then at some point, it would hit me, and I'd end up crying. Yeah. But every episode, I was like, that's all right. Oh, this moment, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they would nail those moments.
But I don't know. So it felt very uneven to me. Season 2 came back, and I had to immediately go back, which you can't do on Hulu because for some reason they don't have season 1.
Peacock's fault.
And so I had to go over to Peacock and watch the season finale of season 1, which I'm really glad I did.
With commercials?
Yup, with commercials.
New York City.
and so season 2, when I did that and went back and watched season 2, it is. You're right. There's nothing different about it from season 1. It is everything I liked about season 1. I think it's actually a little bit better. It feels less uneven to me. I feel like the Office ensemble they're doing a little bit more with.
Yeah,
they always felt like background characters in season 1 to me, even though they are consistently the same people. They really actually started, I felt like, using them more.
Then we got Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
That was a great addition. And the two main guys, they're sort of bros. I think they did a good job deepening them in season 1, so that we drop back in season 2. Instead of Leaf being her nemesis, he's more of like a friend to me, maybe even a friend. Like he's not so hateful. They've done a good job of deepening him. And the same thing with a bro who's so obnoxious. I don't remember his name, but I'm like, I like that dude. It's the kind of the turn you make with like Morgan over in Chuck, where it's like you start out and you kind of hate him, but then you see why. Oh, yeah, this guy's obnoxious, but in kind of an endearing way. And I think they did a good job with that too.
Yeah, and the songs have been great. I'm only
Hello Dolly was.
I'm only halfway through episode 2 of season 2, but the sister-in-law's sister showing up and doing Poison is just wonderful.
I like that character.
And I saw somebody make a comment, I think on one of Randy's posts about they don't seem to know what to do or don't care to do anything with Mo and Skylar Austin's business idea.
But it's so early. I think that's going to be.
I don't know when they've not done this. There've only been 2 episodes, and they mentioned it in both so far.
That's my friend who works in tech in San Francisco and is really mad because this is an unrealistic version of how tech works. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't care about that.
I don't care about that.
That's not what the show is about. It's not about what it's like to work in tech.
I feel like many sitcoms have gotten wrong how magazine industry offices work.
It's the same exact. That's the thing. I think he's so focused on it's not how tech works, and I'm like, this is basically just them working at a coffee shop.
They just need an office or a coffee shop or something.
They have standing desks. Yeah. If that isn't tech, I
love Empire Records, but what's the labor cost of that afternoon? Jesus.
Oh yeah.
But
that place is going out of business,
right?
One of the things I really liked in this, because of the way that she lost her dad. They have her friends who are all sort of disparate people come together as a friend group. And that's first of all, very realistic that basically while she was sort of recovering and recouping, that they became friends.
Yes.
And also just a really clever way of like, well, now the whole thing's an ensemble.
Yes.
Like the 2 will they, won't they guys, they're friends now.
That I think is what made it come together for me differently. I think you're right. And I love their unapologetic, like you checked out.
Yeah.
We started a text thread to make sure you were okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Also, I love Mary Steenburgen in this. I think
she's wonderful.
she's playing the grieving widow, and she's not overplaying it. She's the bit with her and her granddaughter or grandson, whatever, the grandbaby, and her not being sure she wants, like, just kind of casually not being able to hold the baby because of being emotionally disconnected. Like, I thought that was a really nice, subtle little
not
story.
Being able to let go of researching her dead spouse's disease.
Yeah,
I thought was a nice touch. There's a lot. It's a wonderfully heartfelt show. I really, once I got back into the swing of it, it felt like it had been a minute since I'd watched this. And once I got back into the swing of it, it's great.
The way I would describe this show, and tell me if I've hit it or not, it's like Glee in the way that it's a musical with great modern ensemble pieces each week, but it's got this higher concept that really lends itself to some great drama, where characters are communicating their emotions through these songs now, and one character kind of has the key. Skylar Astin plays the love interest, and he's constantly like, this is weird, it's like you can see inside me, but I don't get to see inside you. I don't know what you have going on. But it's really nice because if somebody's having a bad day, she knows, I need to go help this person. Or if somebody's trying to screw her over, it's like
episode 2,
person's toxic.
She's like, look, I gotta go, I gotta head to work, and then she cruises past her mom and like keep an eye on them because like she just watched some song. The show that this reminded me of that is one I think people would probably go find on streaming somewhere and rewatch in these trying times. Eli Stone, which was basically, if you took this concept where you don't know if it's real magic happening to them or a brain tumor or what, but they are seeing people's inner, they're getting hints at like missions they need to do for other people to be a good person through song. And it's Elementary Sick Boy, John, is that Johnny Lee Miller?
Yeah.
He is the main character and is a lawyer. So it's basically like this. It's the Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist setup, but in like an Ally McBeal law firm, basically.
Oh. I bet that law firm's completely unrealistic.
Oh, I'm sure. Just like if it happened in a hospital, it would be wildly unrealistic.
Do you think this show could work with original music, or do you think that's just too many songs to write?
I think it's too many songs. Eli Stone makes a lot of use out of George Michael for some reason in the early episodes. So yeah, I think it's just too much music.
I also think that because it is people's heart songs and that kind of thing, it kind of needs to be familiar music. I like the mix of pop music and musicals and that kind of thing. I think it has a resonance because it's music we know. I think that would work better. Kind of like Glee. Glee, whenever Glee did original songs, it was kind of death.
But
when they were mixing like stuff that we knew, it was better.
Whereas like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend could get away with original songs because they were all jokes.
Yeah,
like the bit was the heart of it.
Yeah, that I agree. And also, they had Adam
Schlesinger, writing
for them. So, maybe if Adam Schlesinger was still around and we're writing, I'd be okay with original songs on Zoe's. But I think the using existing music is actually part of the charm.
Well, one of the reasons I'm taking this show way more serious in 2021 is because in 2020 I saw Carol and Tuesday and Dave, which totally reintroduced the concept of like the music TV crossover in a way where I was like, oh, wait a second. This is how you get a hit.
Like, it's our generation's cop rock.
Yeah. You can get both of those things to work. That's all you need.
The thing that I'm missing is the one season show that was the choir. I used to watch it.
Perfect Harmony.
Perfect Harmony. It did the same thing. They did good music stuff, and I thought the ensemble was really strong. And unfortunately, I think it didn't come back. I used to watch that paired with Zoe's, and it was a basic perfect pairing. So it's kind of
are we sure it's dead? Because I felt like it was doing really well. It just might have been a victim of the pandemic here.
I'm not sure. I think kind of like the other network show that I loved and lost, Stumptown. It may be one of those things that like got renewed, and then when they had to cut things back for COVID, it didn't make the cut. But I don't know. Maybe it'll come back, and I'm just not. But I feel like it didn't. I feel like it didn't make the cut.
Well, do we want to move to Mary? It's Mary Steenburgen in Mr. Mayor. right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, in Zoe, but her husband also is a comedy actor.
Yeah, let's talk about Mr. Mary Steenburgen, aka Ted Danson. And yeah, Mr. Mayor is the new show. It's by Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who did Kimmy Schmidt, and I think they worked together on 30 Rock. I don't know if Carlock was in that. I think he was.
They had that in the promos, like from the creators of 30 Rock.
Okay, that's what I thought it was them. Yeah. So this is the high concept is basically that the mayor, played by the guy from The Shield, whose name I can never remember. His name in The Shield was David Acevedo.
His resignation's great.
But yeah, he basically just flips out over the whole trying to keep LA safe during the pandemic and quits. And so they have a special election for mayor, and this weird celebrity mayor, this weird celebrity guy basically comes out of business retirement and runs for mayor and wins. And now he's basically in politics. And this is the thing where I'm like, there's definitely a few moments in these first like 3 episodes where I'm like, there's no way he could do that and still be mayor. And then I'm like, oh, right, of course he could.
Oh, that was not the unbelievable bit I had. The part that troubled me on it was where it's having trouble finding its footing for me is that I don't quite know who they're making fun of here. And I worry that they're trying to do such a South Park even-handed, everybody's silly, and I don't need it right now.
That is one thing that Faye and Carlock are definitely. Faye is very much liberal, but you can tell that she's got that need to be even-handed thing. Kimmy Schmidt and 30 Rock both did it, where they were like, they love to make fun of celebrity culture. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not sure right now I need to hear about the problems in celebrity culture so much as the problems in our political culture. And so that is a potential problem for me as well. I definitely get a little bit, like you said, the South Park, but isn't everybody weird? And I'm like, no, some people are weirder than others. Some people attack the fucking Capitol. But I also did think that when this show's firing all cylinders, it's funny. The bit where they're having actual celebrities play themselves in a city council meeting, and they had Chrissy Teigen very gamely playing a sort of doofy version of herself who doesn't have real problems, but thinks that her problems are real problems. And that cracked me the hell up. Like, I thought that was really part of that's Chrissy Teigen's so winning.
Yeah, Teigen's great.
But that's a guest starring role. That's a guest bit. And same thing with using Andie MacDowell. I love Andie MacDowell. And having Ted Danson's character have like a weird crush on her, like that was really fun. But the central story about him trying to be a good mayor and Trim trying to be a good dad, it's not quite firing yet, but I can see the glimmers of potential there, partly because it's Ted Danson.
The Holly Hunter character, they both want her to be shrewd and really good at her job, it seems like. I've only watched the first 2. I haven't watched 3. But also like a dysfunctional train wreck to be mocked.
Yeah, they want her to be the super far left city councilwoman.
I was getting kind of Dwight vibes.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like the role that they're looking for her to inhabit.
Yeah.
The one thing that I found, you guys are talking about unbelievable parts of this premise. In 2021, that I just believe there's so much like the motive behind why somebody would want to be a politician. It's really unbelievable that like this character, his only motivation to do politics would be to like make his daughter happy, to like get out of the house. Like he would not have some like, oh, I got to pay this guy back, or I'm tired of people not thinking about me.
Or the crew of business advisors that handle his retirement finances, who were like, okay, well, if you want to run, here's how we position that as a financial asset.
Yeah,
I can't really decide if it's trying to be Veep or Parks and Rec in that term.
It's definitely trying to be closer to Veep. I think the thing to look at is Faye and Carlock, their track record. 30 Rock and Kimmy Schmidt are both, they have a foot in sort of saying something real, but they're basically absurdist humor.
Yes.
And that's what they do best. And I think that this show it's not fully committing to the bit. It's not fully committing to the absurdism, and it can't be a Bill Lawrence show. It doesn't have that same heart. It's got to be just absurd.
That's what.
And I think that
what's not working for me is that flirt.
Yeah.
If you're about a mole woman that escaped from a goofy religious cult, you can flirt with saying something real, and I don't give a fuck because I don't care about the real thing you were going to say about that subject anyway. It's not close to my heart.
Right.
right now, I don't want to hear you flirt with saying something about politics.
Yeah. I think this needs to get more absurd and deepen its cast. It's got a good cast. I love Heather from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
They absolutely can deepen this and get where they need to go. It is first season Parks and Rec for me right now.
Also, do you guys remember where 30 Rock started? Like 30 Rock was not great out the gate. 30 Rock had
I came in later.
I might have come in at season 3, and that it was grooving by then.
Yeah, I think it is possible, just based on having watched these 3 and getting some laughs out of it. Like I didn't love it, but I definitely got some laughs out of it.
I was real surprised.
And I think they could find their gear. I'm just not sure it's going to happen in one season.
No, I hope they get a season 2.
I don't think this is bad. In fact, I remember watching it going, wow, I was kind of expecting this to not be as good. But it's good enough to be like, okay, let's be critical and let's talk about, what's not 100% on this. So it's like, it's good enough to be not as good. Does that make sense?
It's good enough for me to be a little irritated at it and want it to be better. I would have sworn when Bobby Moynihan's character showed up in the first episode, I was like, he's only going to be here for this one episode or something, because his character was such a bit.
Yeah.
And then he actually ends up being in, like, by the end of the second episode, he's one of the things that works best for me in the show.
Moynihan's one of the growth character to watch.
His actually knowing the information that everybody needs, like he knows everything and doesn't know he knows any of it. Is somehow works like he's this dipshit Chancey Gardner for them, and it works great. And also, I can't remember the actress' name from Crazy Ex, but she's another one to watch. I want to see. And right now, I'm just kind of irritated that I don't feel like they're doing enough with Holly Hunter. You can't let her go full bore like mean character, because she's not comedic enough to not. She's too good an actress to let her at that and her not be a villain that would walk away from your movie with an Academy Award, but you're a sitcom.
I'm holding out hope for this one, but right now it is in that I'm not sure I'm going to watch all of it kind of thing. But we'll see.
I'd rather have Perfect Harmony back right now.
Same. Or Stumptown, really. Either one. Okay, let's jump over to Disney Plus and WandaVision, the long anticipated first Marvel show.
So I just want to say I'm so happy I was right.
Right about?
So they reused the same joke from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they combine the names and they have you thinking it's just one character, and then it turns out, surprise, it's about 2 characters, because it turns out that this show is about a married couple named Wanda and Vision, like Fitzsimmons.
No, but it's also WandaVision, because we're watching a show that is WandaVision. It's in WandaVision, which is a very different kind of thing.
WandaVision.
It has more layers. S.H.I.E.L.D. never had more than one layer. Sometimes it has
one thick layer. One real thick layer.
The agents and the S.H.I.E.L.D. It was 2 things.
So I want to preface this by saying that I am a total whore for the MCU. And my thumb goes on the scale whenever I'm watching the MCU stuff. And if Kevin Feige is involved, which he is here, I have a pretty bottomless well of faith built up by the 22 movies they've made.
So without 40 something hours of movies that's already watched and that faith, what happened in these 2 episodes that would keep you watching this show?
No. I think there's a better question, Randy. Can we trust you in a court of law? Do you need to excuse yourself from proceedings?
Question, Randy. Can they run?
Inherent bias?
Kyle, you know how when you love a show, I have to ask you how much of it is because the show is good and how much of it is because it's British?
How much is because it's Marvel?
You guys can fairly ask. And I think,
Randy. Randy, okay.
Right now, 50% of my love of WandaVision is because it's MCU and I have faith in it. I did enjoy these 2 episodes.
I enjoyed them, yes.
I did not get the sense, Les, that you enjoyed these 2 episodes.
Well, I will.
Go ahead.
Before we get into the episodes, these are 2 episodes that are going to be way better after we've seen the full season.
Yes.
And
we go back and we find all the little things that we may not have caught, in these first 2.
So one thing I want to say off the bat is, looking at my friends' feeds, I clearly felt like I was in the minority, because so many of my friends just adored this. And I came out of it thinking, that was okay. I liked it. I liked the performances. But the word I would use is self-indulgent. Like,
yes.
Like they this is what they promised us. They did say we're going to make a sitcom in the Marvel Universe, and I'm like, they don't really mean that. No, they really mean that. Like, there are 2 episodes of basically 50s and 60s sitcoms, black and white sitcoms, done with Wanda and Vision for some reason. Like, that's what they did. There are little tiny elements. There's 1 or 2 moments in the first episode, and 3 or 4 moments in the second, where we get this sort of
logo.
Twilight Zone paranoia, something else is going on. But most of it is a pretty straightforward, dead-on riff on Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, I Love Lucy.
Yeah, what if you had to watch a whole season of My 3 Sons before one thing Pleasantville happened?
So could I watch an entire, if the show, as it looks like it's going to be, is going to be moving through sitcom tropes, like the next one's going to be a little more Brady Bunch and that kind of thing, because they're going into color. Could I watch 9 episodes of this being just Wanda and Vision in various sitcom tropes as they have kids and a marriage, and we get to see the relationship, and the sword stuff remains basically just like framing device? Yes, I could. But I wouldn't be super happy about it.
It's 9 episodes?
It's 9 episodes.
And
so we're not even...
we've spent 2 of them in black and white land with nothing happening.
I disagree that nothing happened.
I mean, he did eat bubblegum.
Well, no, the thing is, I think that a lot happened. We're just not going to be told what happened until later episodes. I think of that movie Stay Tuned, where was that a Jack Ritter movie?
Yeah.
Flipping through all the channels, and essentially he's like experiencing all these different genres of television program. I could see where we get a few episodes where they introduce, okay, these are the different periods, and then when the action starts, I'd love to see some quick changes as she like is flipping the channels, and everything's kind of going from one genre to the next. Do you think we're going to get that?
I don't think we're going to switch genres. I do think we're going to switch,
or not genres, but switch through the shows that we've already seen, but kind of quickly.
I don't know. So the questions raised in this first. So the first 2 episodes. One is a straight up like married couple has a misunderstanding, have to have a dinner with the boss episode. The other one is neighborhood talent show, some politics of the town, have to impress the townie. So both of the theme of the first 2 episodes is Wanda and Vision fitting in New Jersey, and that all kind of works. That's kind of what their comic book miniseries have always been about too. And I love that. Glamour and Illusion, their characters, they play the magic show. That is a deep cut from the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries. That was their neighbor in the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries in the 80s in the comics. So I love the way they got that in there. That is the kind of thing that DC and Marvel both do, but Marvel does a little bit better, I think, when they do the nods to the comics. Like, you don't have to know it, but if you do, it's like, oh, hey, there's that. And I kind of like that.
Go ahead. I was going to say my favorite Easter egg so far is somebody pointed out the very first line that Scarlet Witch has in this is she's in the kitchen and then Vision walks through the door and she's like floating the plates around and the plate breaks on his head. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, my husband with the indestructible head."
Yep.
And it's the idea that the first thing she would do in this new reality is make sure that Vision's head is indestructible.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Essentially, that's the thing that, potentially sent her into this.
I can't remember what the last movie is when we all had to do this, but how much work do we all have to do for Marvel and Disney for making this show cool? Like, I'm not joking. For every time a movie comes out, like Justice League or any DC movie, the crowd of friends that we've all had who staunchly defended that Man of Steel was great, or that Batman versus Superman was not as bad as you thought it was, and they go through and show you every Easter egg and it's so much heavy lifting. And I got through the first episode of WandaVision and was like, man, I don't want to do this for y'all. Like, I don't like Disney does not get credit for me being stuck at home so that they know that I will watch an hour into a show or more. I have no doubt that we won't. I don't think we'll get anything of substantial until episode 7. And so we figured out that I'm on a different end of the spectrum on this than Randy by me wading into a Facebook thread.
For sure.
And I waited. My opening comment on that thread was that I liked it a lot more than you, because you didn't enjoy it because you didn't have any nostalgia for Dick Van Dyke Show or My Three Sons or Nick at Night. And I love those shows. So they more or less nailed it. There were a couple of things in episode 2. The animation wasn't right, which it's Disney, and that's real annoying. But there were a few things that annoyed me. But more or less, I liked I like watching Dick Van Dyke episodes, so this was perfect. But I wanted a show about the MCU that affected the MCU, and I realized, this is going to affect the MCU in the sense that the large concept you're telling does, but you're telling it in a way where nothing happens in any episode that I can put together until it's over, so you don't have to do it week to week. It's not fucking with your other shows week to week. Not that that matters in Wanda, but it felt like a cheat out of like it quote unquote affects the larger MCU, because whatever's big picture going on here affects the MCU. But episode to episode, you're in the framework and nothing fucking matters.
Listening to you talk about it, funny enough, I kind of like it more because I have a feeling that Loki and Winter Soldier, when they start, they're going to start at the beginning and we're going to know, here's the first thing. It's almost like this is kind of our last chance to get like a what the hell's going on story in before we get some more linear ones later
Legion
this year.
managed to be like this and have stuff happen.
That's what it actually feels like to me.
It feels, that is the thing I will say, and I think that's why it's working for a lot of people on this level, is that it's experimental. We have not seen, they have not done a Marvel sitcom at all. Like, this is something new. The closest they've come is like what, Thor Ragnarok and Ant-Man. So like, this is something brand new and experimental and different. And if you've watched everything Marvel's done and loved it, I can see where you're like, first of all, to talk about the stuff that's good in this, everyone is performing their hearts out. Like the performances are great. The production values are great. This is already miles away, far and away better than everything they've done on Netflix and ABC to me. I think it doesn't look cheap like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. always did, or even Agent Carter, which I really enjoyed, looked cheap.
This looks great, and the acting's great.
The costuming in this, I mean, they're not in their full superhero garb, but like the costumes they do have look amazing.
Honestly, just getting Elizabeth Olsen, yes, and Paul Bettany to get to play off each other. Like, we got 10 minutes of Vision and Scarlet Witch in the movies. Like, they were together for about 5 minutes, and then an evil elf attacked them, and then they were together for like 2 minutes, and then Thanos killed the Vision. Like, we've not seen them together that much, and so to get an hour of them together as a couple in whatever context was something I enjoyed.
My problem is that I feel like the show, and I hope I'm proven wrong, because I know it's going to all stack up and you're going to want to go back and watch these first 2 episodes once it's all done. But I feel a bit like there was a crit a few years ago about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner, that if you don't know the story of Robin Hood, that movie actually doesn't track. Like, you can't watch that movie without knowing the story of Robin Hood already and follow it. The character motivations don't make sense. You have to already know who these people are.
The Kevin Costner one, right?
Yeah. And
I was a young kid when I saw that.
And like, somebody has to have already told you the story.
That was my introduction to Robin Hood.
Yeah. I feel like that about WandaVision, of like, this all is only really going to be great after it's done and you go back and watch it, because they made too much of it the fictional universe for me in 2 episodes in a row, and leave me feeling like they're going to keep doing that. And I'm not sure what Easter eggs are buried so deep that is worth this level of cleverness. There's nothing here, and I've watched 40 hours of Marvel movies and read decades of comics. Like, I don't know what they've hidden that is going to be a big enough reveal that I'm going to go, that was worth making it to Act 3 before you said anything.
Right. I do think that's the thing, is if you're not interested in watching sitcom pastiche, it's going to be a disappointing show. Because I
am fairly interested in that, and I still feel like I'm less excited about this than my friends who are doing the Lord's work of making this show have more happen in this 40 minutes than did.
I think here is the real tough pill to swallow in terms of like recommending this show to people. There's only 2 people you can recommend this to, all right? the people kind of like us, the Marvel heads who have seen the movie, read the comics, they were going to watch this long before that first episode aired, before the first trailer. They were already in. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you have this small group of people who are apathetic on the Marvel stuff. Like they watch it, but they don't go out of their way to find it.
They've been jonesing for that Ozzy and Harriet buzz.
I actually have a really close friend who's like this, who he buys one streaming service at a time. He'll turn off Netflix, turn on Disney Plus. And I told him today, I said, wait till all of WandaVision's up and then do it.
I would be so mad if I bought Disney Plus and watched those 2 episodes.
Yeah, this is going to be way better on when you can watch the whole season, I think.
On a binge. And that's the thing. I think Les is like, well, are they going to come through in the end? I don't know. And if they don't, I wasted an hour of my life watching this. And I think, I'm
almost 3 hours.
I'm definitely sure. Oh, you're talking about the whole thing. Yeah. I am 100% sure that by the end of this, I'm going to really enjoy it. And part of it, honestly,
I'm pretty sure I will.
Is that I didn't like Thor Ragnarok on first watch. I thought it was too jokey. It was not what I expected. It was not what I wanted. I wanted something much more Walt Simonson. And I still to this day I'm not as in love with it as everybody else is. But I've come around on it now that I see what it was doing, and I'm like, that is legitimately a great movie. It just wasn't doing what I wanted. And I feel like at worst, WandaVision is going to be that. It's going to be that was really well done. It just wasn't what I wanted. And I don't even think that's going to happen. I do think, unfortunately, and it's worked out for them because a lot of our friends like it, and the buzz is good. It's in the power rankings. Like clearly it's doing what Disney needed to do. But I feel like starting with Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is probably going to be much more conventional, would have been a smarter way to launch their new TV thing.
It felt like a flex of like when I started the second episode and realized, oh, we're just staying with it. Okay, it felt like a fuck you from Disney. Of we know
actually
that we don't have to tell you anything that's going on. You're just going to keep watching. We can do whatever we want, and you're just going to keep watching.
I have to disagree with you, Les. All right, and here's why. Not to defend them, but I guarantee you there was a meeting where they sat down, they looked at their first 2 episodes, and they said, if we air these each week apart, it's going to be an FU. Let's stick them together and do 2 episodes at once, which kind of defeats the purpose because last week they released that like 15-minute clip show and passed that off. That made one of the power rankings, and it was just kind of like, really? Just clips from the other movie? But no, I do think
more
that
happened than these 40 minutes.
They purposely released these together with that big ending. Oh, we're going to color in the next one. Because they knew some viewers it was going to be too much.
By the way, I'm going to disagree with you that nothing happened. Because
what happened?
Well, first of all, Wanda's pregnant. That's kind of notable.
Is it real?
Second of all, it's as real as the pregnancy she had in the comics.
I mean, is it as real? Like, I'm sorry, they're all in the framework.
I don't think this is the Matrix, the framework, or anything like that.
It's whatever they're calling it this round, but none of this is real.
I think it's all real. It's just it's got a hyper layer on top of it.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I don't like. I don't give a shit about the magic show.
Yeah,
like the actual A plot of that episode is not real, and it drives me nuts. Like they're on a slab somewhere.
People in the town find out that they're really a robot and a magician. Like, what'll happen?
It would move the plot forward and maybe break the program and wake them up. I don't know. We won't see that until episode 7, Kyle.
There's steaks on the grill.
I don't know. So fucking much. I'm sorry. I feel like that's what they've done.
I don't know. We're introducing so many characters. We're introducing Agnes, who I love. Catherine Hahn's doing great in this. We got Geraldine, who is very. I mean, obviously you have to know this, but that is very clearly going to be Monica Rambeau, who is and so. I'm watching all this stuff, and I don't feel like it's a deep reach for me to know that level. Like you're right. You shouldn't have to do the heavy lifting of, well, what does that Tony Stark commercial mean? What does that Strucker commercial mean? It's not. That's also not super heavy lifting, by the way. But that's you're right. That's fair. I will give you that. You shouldn't have to do that much work. But knowing
that's what they think is clever.
Like, I don't know.
Like, look how interesting this 40 minutes were. Did you catch that it was a Stark commercial, Randy? Strucker.
I don't know. The little bits I've got are more than enough to keep me entertained, and I thought as a pastiche they did a good job executing it. I just wasn't interested in the pastiche.
Yeah. I wish it wouldn't have been a Strucker watch. I wish it would have been Strucker's Jam.
With a name like Strucker. It's
with a name like Strucker, it's got genocide in it.
Well, anyway, I'm quite sure we'll probably wind up checking back in on this again to see if Les is right, and it will all be like 7 episodes of pastiche and 2 episodes of things happening, or if he'll decide he likes it, or if I decide I don't like it. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see. We're definitely in the minority here because people loved this show.
I think people really wanted to be excited about this show and are going to back off of it in a month or 2.
It was signed on arrival.
We'll see.
Yeah. People were super excited about Justice League at first.
I'm still trying to figure out what is the big lesson that Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios took from like Game of Thrones and Prestige TV. Is it that, we can tell our movie, we don't have to edit our movies down to 2 hours anymore. We can like stick them in 30-minute chunks on the streaming service. Mm-hmm. Or is it that they're going to deliver moments in these episodes that keep us talking for a week? Because that's why you do episodic, is to have that moment where it's like, do you see the dragon's going to be a nice dragon?
I don't feel like they learned that lesson. Unless it was, did you see Vision unchoke his boss?
See, here's the thing. I think, and I know going on the show on the MCU pod on Friday, we all know that Grant loves speculation. That's what got him. That's what he loved Lost. He loves The Leftovers. This is a show custom engineered for week-to-week speculation.
Yes.
What does that mean? Who
is
that?
What if we wrote nothing and just let Grant work?
This show's going to be written by Grant Davis.
And the thing is, they've got so many little Easter eggs and things like that, and they're not Easter eggs. A friend of mine pointed out, he's like, if it's crucial to the plot, it's not an Easter egg. Like all this stuff about Sword and all that kind of stuff, that's not Easter eggs. That's part of the story.
And it's just foreshadowing. But we're in.
I think the commercials
5 minutes in.
I think the commercials are Easter eggs. Like the toaster is like the missile in her house.
Yeah, the commercials are. Well, they're not Easter eggs. They're exposition.
They're the only plot you get that matters.
Exposition of stuff we already knew. Or you think they're new things?
Because the magic show doesn't matter as plot. Like the real plot is the Sword stuff and the like wake up Wanda through the radio and who's doing this to you. Those are the only plot bits, and we've gotten 5 of them in 45 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Legion was way the hell weirder than this.
Yeah, but more fun per episode.
As long as they're not Legion weird, they're going to be good.
Yeah,
everybody already loves them. They just need to make people not hate them, and they win.
Grant had said, I feel like Marvel's earned some trust and leeway on this, and I'm like, Marvel Television has not. This is Disney's first TV show. Runaway shit the bed halfway through.
You cannot. No.
There's 4 episodes in the middle of every Netflix Marvel show of every season that are not worth watching.
Your Honor, we have already stricken from the record all the Jeff Loeb TV. You can't apply. Jeff Loeb's not involved with this. You cannot apply all the sins of Netflix and Hulu Marvel to this show. It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not still Marvel. I just say like this is their first foray to they can't have proven shit to me before. They've had a slow as hell section of every show prior. If this is their fresh start, then they're currently proving something to me, and they're proving that they can stick with the pastiche 2 weeks in a row, and take credit for doling out 2 Sword references.
I think the argument, which I agree with, is that the faith comes from the movies.
Yes.
They landed a 22 movie series with very few stumbles.
Yes.
And if you look at that and you look at it's the same kind of architects working on this show, it's not unfair to ask them to give them 4 or 5 hours of your time. That's what
Here's the thing. I will, little caveat.
If we were an hour into a Captain Marvel movie and nothing had happened, I'd be fucking furious.
So 4 or 5 hours of our time would be if they gave us a season drop. But they are asking us to commit to weeks of our time because we're going to discuss, we're going to speculate, we're going to watch little videos on YouTube of other people discussing and speculating. We're going to listen to our friends' podcast.
Remember that year where Disney called me once a month and told me one sentence of a long joke?
Exactly. We're going to get it in little pieces.
That's a fair argument, and I will allow it.
I hope I'm sure it will all pay off great once all 9 are done. you're
just annoyed by the start.
And the complete I feel like people are going to not regret this fawning, because that would be admitting it out loud, but I feel like the excitement is the excitement for getting WandaVision, not for what WandaVision gave you.
I don't know. I feel like it's much more likely when we get to the end of this that we're going to be like, no, this was a good series, and that start was slow, but it was good. I don't think people are going to regret and go like, no, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be at the beginning. I think it's going to gain momentum and get better and better.
I hope so. Mojoverse. I think they're all stuck in the Mojoverse.
Let's say
how they're going to introduce the X-Men.
The terrorists blew up Disney servers tomorrow, and this was the only WandaVision we ever got.
That'd be terrible.
In terms of comics, though,
that would be terrible. If this was the only WandaVision you got, right?
That is true.
I don't. Yeah. I think this would be like that thing where you're like, oh yeah, did you ever see the Wanda and Vision in black and white, where it was like the Dick Van Dyke riff? Like, let me pull out this volume to show you real quick.
Yes, like, I would put WandaVision on par with the Hasselhoff Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
the comparison I'm going to make here, because Sepinwall talked about it on his podcast, I'd forgotten that they did Veronica Mars before they did the movie and before they did the reboot on Hulu. He pitched a season 4 that was Veronica Mars in the FBI in college. Mm-hmm. And it's a 12-minute clip. It's just like a proof of concept. And it's great. And if that was all we had of that Veronica Mars, I still would show it to people. Like, I still did show it to people.
I still show Global Frequencies pilot to people.
And WandaVision, I have to agree with Les on this. If this was all we got, if the servers blew up tomorrow, I would never show this to anybody.
I'm not saying that it's life day bad, but I would put it in the list of like, oh, you're a Marvel fan, let me show you some weird shit.
It doesn't work without knowing how it all comes out. Yeah,
and that's
totally fair.
It wasn't cool enough in these 2 episodes for me to feel like they were paying off that risk of like, okay, guys, you haven't done the things you normally would need to do for a show to set up for me, but I'm going to live with it because this is bug shit nuts. Instead, this is like the safest, calmest thing with like just a hint of eeriness, but on Disney. So I don't think they're going to really, I don't know, that danger and tension that they're trying to add in with that Twilight Zone-ness. It's Disney, so it doesn't quite hit for me.
It is better than the CBS All Access Twilight Zone every episode I've seen, so I'll say that. And more happens in it.
I actually would take WandaVision over the CBS Twilight Zone I've seen. Because I like My Three Sons and Dick Van Dyke and shit. Yeah.
No, I'm really starting to realize, thinking about it, how the things that work in the movies don't work in TV. And whether or not this is a gamble, probably not, because they attract talent. But this is a new thing that they're doing.
That is the worry, and that is where I think Les could be right, is that this is a different medium. And if they didn't realize that in making this, that could hurt them. But we don't know. And we won't know till the end of it. But as TV viewers, we have to judge it based on 2 episodes. And I think the general vibe here is it wasn't like great. Like it didn't blow us. It's not so different from Mr. Mayor. It's like, this could be good, but it's not there yet.
And it annoys me a little bit to be asked to, I watch slow shows all the time, but to feel like I'm being directly asked to commit to over an hour of setup, like the entire first and part of the second act of a movie, before we tell me that we're heading to Mordor with the Ring is a little annoying, It's like at some point the cuteness of of these short people is wearing off.
Well, all right. We'll definitely at some point check back in on WandaVision to see where it went, and probably check back in on Mr. Mayor. We'll do a season check on that. We won't check back in on Magicians because it's over.
It's done. Mm-hmm. Though I do want Randy to watch first and last of that.
Well, thank you, Les. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our patrons. And until next week.
Wanda, are the TV dudes out? Wanda.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.